Good afternoon. Hi. Hi. Don't hear me, please. Hi. Hi. Thank you very much. So, as introduced, I'm Seyi Akiwowo, and I'm really excited to be here out of the smog of London and into Manchester, talking to you about navigating being the first. So, as I said, I'm Seyi. I'm from the best side of London, East London. I love dancing. Actually, I'm getting an earlier train, so I make sure I'm back home in time to go to a tap class. And I'm a huge fan of Adele, so I'm extremely jealous every weekend when we see photos of Adele in Vegas, because I try to get tickets, but alas, I am here. So I'm going to be spending the next 25 minutes with you talking about navigating being the first. Anyone here thinking that sounds a little bit weird? Navigating being the first. What's there to navigate? Surely being the first is a cool thing, right? We all want to be the first footballer to break new goal records, first footballer to get signed X amount of money per contract, first one to break a record. You know, Adele's broken many records, talking about Adele. Everyone talks about the first as some kind of thing to like aspire to. And I certainly did growing up, but actually having been somebody who has had to leave their professional dance job because my Nigerian mother said you need to get a real job, I have wanted to always smash records and be a pioneer. I've actually hated the term, well, it's never been done before. That used to motivate me to even want to do it even more. To the point that Google Maps will say it takes 17 minutes to get to a location. I'm like, I can do that in 15 minutes. Like, that's how competitive I was growing up and being the first. And I have had amazing accolades, and I'm really proud of that. And I am proud to make sure that sexism and racism and ageism doesn't hold me back. But sometimes being the first can be a bit lonely, can be a bit daunting, can be a bit like, is this really for me? I don't want to be the only one that looks like me that's here. I don't want to have to keep pioneering and being unfamiliar with things. I get that feeling. And so I want to share some of the tips around navigating being the first, because a lot of you are pioneers. A lot of you have smashed records already being here. Like me, I'm the first person in my family to go to a Russell Group University. So my sister, who is 10 years older than me, did go to university. But going to Russell Group University was a whole different ballgame. I've never felt working class in my entire life, but at those 3 years at LSE. I was also the first to be elected as a young female politician. That sounds really cool on one hand, but on the other hand, it was really tough. I was only 23 years old. I was a baby, having to be in council chambers and doing speeches and door knocking, and it was a lot. And also, 3 years later, I founded an organization called Glitch, which is a charity determined to end online abuse. And do you know how many BAME CEOs there are in the UK? We make up 3%. So can you imagine always being in a room where somebody would assume that I'm the cleaner, or I'm an assistant, or, oh, actually at Parliament on the day that the Queen died, I was referred to as the intern in my own organisation. So sometimes navigating being the first can just be a little bit #dead. So I'm not an expert. I am a student of life like you guys. I often make the joke when I'm asked if I've got a student card at a shop, and I say, look, I don't have a student card, but I'm a student of life. And that tends to make them laugh, and I end up getting my 10% discount. So I'm going to share my 6 tips of being a student of life with you. And it's all about us being able to find a healthy balance with this pioneer spirit that we have, and being proud of being the first without erasing our ancestors and those that came before us that paved the way for us to be here. And also not giving into respectability politics. By that, I mean not thinking because I'm the only black one in the room, or the only BAME person in the room, or the only person wearing hijab, like I have to now represent all people wearing hijab. That's a big responsibility, right? Like, how do we make sure we don't put that stuff on ourselves? And to good to whose standards anyway? So I want to help you guys feel like you can be proud of your bios and your awards and your accolades and your achievements, but that doesn't need to define you. And I want you to feel like you can be a pioneer and smash goals, but not at the expense of your well-being and yourself. So I hope you come away with some practical tips. Let's just get into it. The first one is values. Who are you and what are your values? I believe this is the bedrock, the foundation, basically, in navigating life. If you don't know what you stand for and what you're about, how can you show up anywhere authentically yourself? How are you going to make sure that you're not osmosing to other people's beliefs and ideas? How do you know how you can weather the storm? And actually, where's your integrity? And I think having values of how you want to show up in the world for yourself, offline and online, is going to be so key in navigating the world of adulthood, which, let me tell you, as 31 years old, it never ends. It is a lot. Having values, I think, is really important in grounding you, and making sure that it's a resilience or a protective layer when you are constantly being othered. And that can seep into your nervous system. That can seep into your body when you're constantly made to feel like you don't belong here. What you're thinking is weird and your beliefs are a little bit strange. Having values and being able to come back to them allows you to stay grounded and not have othering seep into your framework, which impacts our mental health and well-being. It is my recommendation to have values because it's an antidote to the way people are telling us how to navigate life, and people are always labeling us and always telling us what to do, particularly as we're growing up on social media. One of the values that I slowly learned that I really, really wish I had really formed a relationship with this value a lot early on, why I'm passing it on to you, is self-compassion. Like, self-compassion was not in my vocabulary. Like I said, I'm a British Nigerian. You work hard. You grind, hustle now. I'm from East London as well. Grime culture. Like, you hustle now and then you get your rewards later. Like, self-compassion was just not in my vocabulary. And so I spent the last year, after taking 3 months out of work because of burnout, to really cultivate self-compassion and be a lot kinder to myself, because it can be really easy to look at a goal and be like, until I get here, everything that I've achieved isn't worth it. It isn't great. When actually, no, being compassionate and being in a spirit of gratitude on the journey is just as important. I talk more about how to set values in my book, How to Stay Safe Online. And I think we should be proud of being values driven country, you know, and being values led. And I think sometimes people coy away from their values because they think, oh, it's not popular. When actually, a lot of the people that we now make popular in society, that we follow on social media, is because they have values aligned framework. So values are cool. And I think more of us should be making values a prominent conversation. If you are struggling to find your values and what you stand for, I've been there. My recommendation is going to sound really weird, but is taking yourself out for a cheeky Nando's. And by that, I mean dating yourself. Set yourself some challenges, something that's outside your comfort zone. Rock climbing, going for a walk, yoga. Start spending some alone time with yourself and start seeing, actually, is that the stuff that I like doing? Spotify radio is also really good. Like, if you like one song, like say it's Burna Boy Last, right? You click on it and do song recommendation. It now opens you up to a whole host of artists and songs, and it allows you to realize, actually, do I like this kind of music? What am I into? What am I interested in? And also journaling. Spending time by yourself, which again feels really weird to do because all you want to do is party and be with people and never want to hear the sound of your own voice because our inner critic is so mean. But journaling, I promise you, is a great way to cultivate a relationship with yourself and to work out your values. My second tip for you guys is money. And it's really weird that we in British society don't like talking about money, given how much money makes our world go round and how much corruption makes the world go round and how much we need money to survive in a capitalist society. And I think actually, as working class communities, we should be talking about money even more so, because there is so much less of it. Growing up working class meant I was actually quite fearful of money. And I struggled to budget. Like, I struggled to have savings for more than 3 months at a time. And that's quite common. Did you know that 70% of lottery winners end up being broke or go on to declare bankruptcy? So it goes to show that it's not about hustling. It's not about money. It's about our psychological relationship with money and seeing it as a way of navigating resources in life and to be able to show up and be there for each other. Navigating being the first, where you've come from a potentially and most probably a background that hasn't had a lot of money, can feel now quite daunting when you've now got a graduate job or you've got an internship, you've got work experience. Like, what do I do with this? My biggest 3 tips here is 1, practice setting a budget. Practice setting, okay, this is my income that I'm getting. This is how I want to spend it. And try and use some of the income that you've got towards saving. And that leads me to my second tip, having an effort fund. Can't swear today, but having an effort fund. And that allows you to have a savings that mean that you start to have more agency control around how you want to navigate life. Aren't you sick and tired of saying you can or can't do something because you haven't got funds or haven't got money? By having an effort fund, it allows you to have more agency around, what do I want to do with my life? I believe in the power of effort funds. It allowed me to have a career break. It allowed me to leave jobs where my managers were not great or not supportive. It allowed me to show up for myself. It allowed me to support my family and my boyfriend at times where the cost of living was going through the roof. Having effort funds really does allow us to have freedom. Practicing now with whether it's your student loans, whether it's a part-time job, whether it's an allowance from your family if you get one, practicing a budget and a realistic budget is a really great way to go, and making sure you have savings. And then my final tip is making sure you understand your monetary value. I co-run a group called More Than Money, and that supports over 100 women and non-binary people around getting properly remunerated for their work. Too many women and non-binary people, particularly in the third sector, particularly in campaigning activism, don't get paid a proper day rate. So my final tip when it comes to money is making sure you are clear around your day rate. And by day rate, I mean, how much does your time cost? And then times that by the value you add. And that is your day rate. Making sure you really understand your monetary value is so important when you go into the world of work, where they often treat people from working class backgrounds a lot harder than our middle class counterparts. All right, third tip, overworking. I've mentioned a few times that I'm Nigerian. I'm Yoruba, if you guys care. And the concept of overworking is so ingrained in not just Nigerian culture, but actually in British culture. And actually a lot of our culture we see on TV, we see in music videos, we see in entertainment that we have this kind of hustle, grind, work really hard now, rest later. And I just think that's a whole fallacy. I do believe in hard work, and I think you can achieve hard work within your means, within your boundaries, without coming at the expense of your health and your well-being. Being clear about your parameters. Okay, these are my normal working hours, and I'm willing to maybe extend myself an hour to 2 hours on an occasion, not making that the normal, and having this practice and confidence to communicate, actually, I'm not going to overwork because the repercussions only impact you in the long run. I think overworking also, I'm sure some of you have heard this term, twice as seen, so got to work twice as hard. Overworking can be somewhat a belief that actually if we can work our way in a meritocracy, we can work our way out of discrimination, out of sexism, that yes, I'm a woman and there's like 10 other men in this room. If I work twice as hard, that I'm going to be respected. I'm sorry to say that won't happen. They will still be sexist. They will still be racist, and there will still be whatever kind of bigotry they want. Overworking will not get you the rewards that you think it will. Hard work will, yes, but overworking at the expense of your personal and well-being, no. So my tip here is to be more strategic. Think about what's the point of my investment of my time and my energy and my resource. What am I hoping to do? Get a promotion, move jobs, network? Like, what am I trying to do? Making sure that it always comes back to the first tip, your values. My other tip around overworking is looking for a mentor or a sponsor. Like I said, I come from a working class background, and so having social capital and understanding the political scene and how things really worked, we didn't have. But the one thing my mum did was she knew how to get me a mentor. So do you guys remember when you collect your GCSE certificates? You have to go back a couple of months later and there's like a ceremony and they give it to you. Our MP, Lynn Brown, at the time, was doing the certificates. And my mum, she doesn't speak much, but when she does, you hear her. And she said, Lynn Brown, when will my daughter do work experience with you? Not can my daughter do work experience with you, when? And because of my mother, I got an internship at Parliament. And that was an amazing thing to have on my CV and open so many doors. And because of that networking that my mother did, I now had Lynn, my MP, take me in as a mentee and support me through my political journey. She helped me get other internships at the Holocaust Educational Trust. She was a reference for university applications. It was so important to have another female role model in politics who also came from my local area support me. I was able to ask her all the dumb questions and learn from her mistakes too. Getting a mentor or sponsor at this pivotal time is so key. So make sure you have a look at the qualities, again, that you would like to see in yourself or the values that you see are important, and try and find that in your mentor or sponsor. My final tip on overworking is on making sure that you have boundaries. I talk a lot about overcoming the awkwardness of setting boundaries and communicating your needs in my newsletter, which is free. It's a Substack newsletter, and you can find out more on the last slide. And I talk frankly about how we sometimes internalize a lot of the sexism and the racism and the ageism and believe that we shouldn't have needs, we shouldn't have boundaries, we shouldn't have remits or limits. And actually, being able to honor your boundaries is actually a really loving thing you can do for yourself. This quote from Prentice Hemphill lovingly explains boundaries as the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. To implement boundaries, though, you need to get to know yourself, which is why I do recommend taking yourself out for a cheeky Nando's once in a while. Date yourself to understand your body's needs and what makes you happy and what environments do you need to help you flourish. Being okay with saying, I need X and I would like Y is really helpful in establishing your boundaries. Getting to know yourself and recentering your needs, because sometimes it does happen. You get lost and you forget and you have a busy week. Having been able to come back to your boundaries and your needs and update them and recentering yourself can feel really awkward because, wait, the spotlight's on me. I can say what I want. Can feel really daunting, but practicing now, I promise you, is a way to navigate the reins of adulthood and work. Centering self-care is really important when it comes to things like deadlines, working backwards and making sure you're not leaving things to last minute. I used to think that I am somebody that thrives off the adrenaline of leaving deadlines for the last minute. No, it was just that I was reliant on the adrenaline and the trauma of handing in work late, that I used that to encourage me to work. And that isn't what actually I needed. I needed sleep. I needed good rest. I needed good food and nutrition. I needed to be in the company of friends and an encouraging environment. I didn't actually need these cortisols in my body and stress to keep going. Making sure that I wasn't having late nights and partying, which can sound really boring. And don't get me wrong, when I go out skanking, I love to skank, but I can't do it every night if I want to make sure that I'm centering my needs and my well-being, because I, Seyi, need 8 hours sleep. Practicing these conversations with your friends, saying, actually, I'm not going to go to that party this week because I'm going to have a night in, I'm going to have a bath, I'm going to have some candles, I'm going to watch TV, I'm going to binge, whatever it is a great way to practice, because you will get tested on your boundaries when it comes to the world of work. And being able to communicate your boundaries too is really important. Boundaries also apply on the online space. I don't have time today to go into my whole spiel around how to stay safe online. You can read that in the book, or you can follow me on social media. But the thing that I want to say is that we live in a society that forces us to overshare, forces us to be online more than ever before. Building healthy boundaries around digital self-care, around what you want to post, where you want to be private, the public profile and brand that you want to have, who you want to allow to have access to this information is really important boundaries. The amount of people I know that have been turned down from jobs because they posted stuff 10 years ago is so sad, but also is so avoidable. So really be intentional about how you want to show up in the online space. And remember that having boundaries and then being tested does not mean that your boundaries are whack. It just means that you need to be around better people. Coming to my second to last tip, I kind of alluded to this already, but it's about community and networking. Like I said before, I come from a working class background. Navigating UCAS was like, what are you talking about? I don't know what a personal statement is. You want me to write my whole thing on why I should go to university in 500 words? I have no idea what you mean or what this is. And I come from a generation where we had to use dial-up to get on the internet as well. So you had to go to the school library or have like good Wi-Fi and have not a sibling on the phone on purpose trying to interrupt your internet. Like, I come from that generation where I had no idea about navigating university and work and internships and taxes and your NI number and self-employment. Like, all of that is really hard. That's why it's really important to make sure in community with your peers that are in similar trajectory as you, making sure you're talking to other friends that are interested in applying for similar roles in a similar sector as you. Like, don't feel like you have to suffer in silence. Make sure you are building a good friendship group. Good sisterhood, good brotherhood, good friendship group is so key, and making sure that you are able to be vulnerable with them and they are able to be vulnerable with you. You can't go through this life being on your own. We are meant to be interdependent human beings. And if we want to navigate being from the backgrounds that we are in this world of work or in this society, making sure you have your community and your village to go back to, who are going to wipe the tears for you, who are going to console you, are going to come around with a takeaway, who are going to come with you to that speed night, dating night, or whatever it is. Making sure you have your ride or die is really important. I told you about the story about my mum around networking, and it's because of that it opened up so many doors to other contacts. I didn't have the money. I actually clocked up 15 grand debt setting up Glitch. I didn't have any money, but do you know what I had? I had followers on social media, and I had a good black book. At university, my second to last year at university, I set up a blog on WordPress, because that was cool back in the day, called Seyi's Thoughts on Education Reform. And that allowed me to cultivate hundreds and hundreds of, and that was good numbers back then, hundreds and hundreds of students all around the UK who were interested in my values around education, talking about the cost of Cameron, talking about tuition fees increasing, talking about how we make sure we have a decolonized education. People were interested in this, and it meant I built up a community of people who wanted to support my work. Because of my internship and experience with networking, I had black books and contacts of people. So even now today, if I need to do a campaign, I need to launch something, and I'm not name dropping here, I can get in touch with Bill Gates' office. I can talk to Emma Watson's team. I can also speak to Jamil's team. I can't give you money, but I can give you access to people who've got platforms. And I think that's really important when it comes to network and community. It's not always about the money, but it's about the resource. And my very final tip, and this is to the women in the room or femme presenting people in the room particularly, but I'm also talking to the guys as well, about relationship and equity. It's so great that more women are working. It's so great that we're seeing progress towards tackling gender equality and gender pay gap. But what we're not talking about is the invisible work that women still do when they go home. And we even see that with siblings. We even see that with cousins. We see that in childhood as well. It's not just when it comes to relationships. We see that a son is treated differently in comparison to a daughter. So I want us, when we're thinking about navigating the first, how we can be more boundaried about the equity we need to be seeing in our relationships, making sure, it's not always the woman in your friendship group that's organizing the next social. It's not always the black woman that is organizing the next team social. It's not always left to the most minoritized voice doing all of the work, which is often said as like, oh, great experience, because you can tell people in interviews or put it on your CV that you organize this social and that social. Yeah, or I can actually rest. Actually I can have some time to just chill out and do nothing. I think equity in relationships is going to be so key if we want to see women stay in work. We've made such great progress in seeing women at work, but what we're seeing is a lot of women leave politics, leave leadership positions because they're not supported at home or with their relationship. So I am talking to the women and femme presenting people in the room, to say, feel more confident to say no to people who ask you to do more. And I'm talking to the blokes in the room, maybe check a little bit yourself next time you're asking somebody to do something that you can do. Equity in relationships is so important. So I have been able to talk to you about how I've navigated the world of work, coming from a immigrant background, one of the most poorest areas of London, and been able to achieve the accolades that I've achieved. And I'm super proud of it. And I hope that you feel that you have some tools to navigate being the first, that you can balance being a pioneer, but making sure that it's not at the expense of your well-being. These people, including Uncle Martin Lewis, are super, super dope people that you should definitely be following on socials or subscribing to their newsletter. And the hashtag weaponizing competence on TikTok is a really great conversation on that last point about equity in relationships. Check out Brené Brown's podcast around how to develop that relationship with yourself and your emotions and setting values and boundaries. And check out How to Be a Good Ally as well. It's a really, really good book on how to make sure that we are not upholding practices that are going to be discriminating against people. So thank you so much for listening to me. It's been great being here. And if you want to know more about what I do or what I say, you can check me out on socials, newsletter, or you can check out my book on Amazon or any bookstore. Thank you very much.